jobs. So folks start working and don't realize how much time has passed and they haven't gotten on the career path
The
that they
career
wanted for
journey.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
usually by
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to the 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. We are back at it again with another live episode, and I am super pumped about this one. We have my amazing friend, my little sister. Don't let her say anything else.
Stop.
Don't let her say anything else. Janey, Janey is joining the podcast today. Welcome, Janey. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Juju, Lil bro.
We are on the roll.
Memory
Anyway,
from back
we're
in
gonna
days.
we're gonna establish this now. She is my little sister, and this is what goes for the rest of the episode. We're not arguing this. This is what is going to be. But Janey, introduce yourself to the people. Well, there's like a million. I always say, I said on my way here, like I don't even know how to introduce you because you do like a million things, and there's like everything that you're good at. So tell us how quick bio. Who are you? What do you do?
Quick bio. So first of all, the girl you'll catch twerking in the club if I still go there, but also on Monday making like some dope ass presentations. But in church, giving it to Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. She has multiple personalities. Depends on the day.
Honestly. But no, thank you for having me. Quick bio, I'll say. So my day job is I support entrepreneurs with getting access to resources like capital, programming, learning, like legal support to get their businesses up and running or actually scaling. And I also have a startup focused in supporting immigrant professionals understand career readiness skills so that they can put themselves forward better in interviews and actually getting that career that they deserve, because underemployment is a thing, meaning a lot of immigrant professionals are coming here and taking jobs that are not equal to what they're trained in. They usually just lack confidence and they don't know how to speak to their Canadian experience. And so that was the reason we started that. I like to think of myself as a professional dancer because I've gotten paid to dance a couple times, and I also do professional speaking. But most importantly, for the sake of this conversation, Juju's my little brother.
Yeah, whatever. We're gonna keep it moving to the next segment, but no, tell us a little bit how like you got like how specifically. I want to speak about your business, and this we're gonna center. You guys see the title, which I haven't decided yet. So, but I'm guessing by the time you guys see this, the title will be something about networking and growing within the corporate world. But how you've gone about kind of developing your network and how you've recognized, like, because at the end of the day, like this business was really founded based on you seeing certain gaps, right, the in kind of the employment force and things like that. So how have you navigated the corporate world?
So first things first, it's like growing up, my mom loved women. First of all, I always have to also add and say a big part of me is the fact that I'm like my mom's. First of all, my mom is also Janey, so I'm Janey Jr.
They're literally the same person.
Literally the same person. And I actually can't wait because I'm bringing my mom on the YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
very soon, so
subscribe to her YouTube channel. Do that now.
YouTube channel supporting immigrants. That's so true. I almost forgot that. But when I moved to Canada in 2015, I had a tech background. I had worked in tech. Everybody at that point had told me that my personality was more media and front facing. So I thought coming to Canada and doing my postgrad was the opportunity for me to, switch careers. And so I moved here, did advertising. I mean, it should have hit me on the first day of class where I showed up to this class that had 40-something plus people and I was the only black girl. I just thought it was Canada. Like, I didn't know. But then I graduated from that program, did a second advertising program, started like being best in class, was trying to find internships, and I'd hear things like you're overqualified, or they would try to offer me a more junior position than an internship. Like, does it even exist? Like, that was like easy stuff. And then I think I looked around and realized, first things, I found out that advertising pays very low. And then there's also no diversity in the industry, man. I'm Nigerian, man. I was like, this is not going to work. And so at that point, too, as a student, I had started a couple side hustles. I was making hair. I was whipping my own body butters. And I wanted to learn how to scale that, because growing up around me, I would always see like mom and pop businesses, but it wasn't like generational. I didn't want to do the typical Nigerian type business that starts and ends with you. And so at that point, also being Nigerian, I know that I had to do my master's. It was almost like, when are you doing your master's?
Yeah, that's the funny part. Like that, what did you say once? I think that we had this conversation where you like in Nigeria having a master's is basically like having high school
diploma.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're done with university. You just have to go do your master's. It's not a question. It's more like, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
And so this whole time I had done postgrad certificates, I knew in the back of my head I was going to do my master's. I had also gotten 7 no's to different universities. And for a kid who's really good in school, man, he humbled me. I was like, okay, whatever. But then I found out later it was just not knowing that with my tech degree, I couldn't just come and do something in media. But I think it was God's work, because I ended up getting a master's of management in innovation and entrepreneurship, because I was now in this mindset where it was no longer focusing on digital media. It was more focusing on how can I actually create a startup that scales and is bigger than me and actually impacts the world.
Yeah.
And then I went to do this master's program in Kingston, and then that was when I realized I was black.
I was like, you will see that Kingston will humble you in that department.
Will humble you, like bad man, so just like randomly on the street touch your hair and different things. And so I was also noticing then, just like watching the space, that the people who were succeeding in getting grants, in getting connections, did not look like me. So, and every time I would pitch, people were like, "Oh my God, great job, Janey! You were so eloquent." I thought it was a compliment at the time. Now I understand that's a microaggression, but I digress. And I will get nothing. I won't get questions. I won't get money. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a lot of coffee chats, like talking to people who I had seen who looked like me, had succeeded in industry. And then one common theme was, oh, you need to have a network, you need to have people. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to network this game. So personal branding and establishing myself became my focus. So right out of school, I had personal brand assets. I would have a list of people I was going to have coffee chats with. And I also decided that my career was going to be the instrument I used to create my network while I'm working on my business. Because who am I going to sell to? Am I going to make products and ship back to Nigeria because I have family there? And that was how I started navigating my career. And now I have worked in 7 organizations, and I think this summit we just hosted where we had you recently was just a testament to how I've been able to grow my career by God's grace and have a network of people that I can lean on for advice, learning, and support as I grow my business.
Yeah, we'll talk. I think that the 7 organizations is an important one, but I want to touch a little bit more on the personal branding and networking, because I think that even in our conversations, you've opened my eyes personally quite a bit on like the importance of networking and the importance of that. But can you tell the people, like, if you're like brand new, if you're coming out of school, like, how do you even do that? How do you brand yourself? How do you start creating a network? How do you even decide what brand you want your brand to be and things like that?
That is a really good question. I get it a lot of times, because it's the first thing people tell you is like, know yourself. But how do you even know yourself? And so it takes a lot of reflection. Like, we just want to, there's always the tendency to just go out there and start talking to people. No, before you do that, take stock, like reflect. And how I did mine was, and thankfully there were some assignments we had to do in school that had me doing some of this, was asking 5 people around me if they thought, when they think about Janey, what 3 words come to mind? And
interesting.
5 people who do not, or are not all in the same circle. So maybe say people I've worked with in the past, people who were colleagues or worked in the past, but like students as well, like me, close friends, and family. Just get a sense of, okay, what 3 words come to mind? I would hear things like, your energy is through the roof. Like, I can't tell you how many times people talked about my energy. And the fact that I'm always optimistic about situations, and I'm strong. I like, black women is always strong, but tell me something else. So that was the first thing. Then I also weirdly did a lot of personality tests.
Okay.
So things like the HBDI, the Myers-Briggs, the temperament test. There's a ton of them. There's like the ENFJ, all those figures, and then there's what's the other one where it tells you if you're a 1, 2, 3, or 4. When you take all those tests, it's not just the numbers of results. Look into what they mean, and then you can start to highlight words that speak to who you truly are.
Because did your horoscope yet?
Yeah, of course. Okay, I'm a Sag, so you know that energy through the roof.
Got it.
Makes sense. I don't believe in horoscopes, though, because if not, I wouldn't be married to who I'm married to.
Mercury in retrograde right now.
Say, listen, bro, like don't take me back to trauma. It's Mercury retrograde. But really, like taking stock of like talking to people was the first step, and then deciding. The truth is, like, everything is a test. Like, nothing, you don't get everything like 100% on the first try. Go out there and see how you're sounding and how comfortable you feel with what you're putting out. So, for instance, it's like, what kind of colors give me joy? Those are the colors I want my brand to be associated with. What tone is me? So I'm that professional, fun person. If you ever catch me in situations where I'm in a professional setting, I don't make a joke, I don't laugh, get me out of there.
Right. That's not a place for you.
That's not a place for me. So I had to decide what was my brand. And the truth is, when you're starting out, it's very intimidating because sometimes your authentic self is not appreciated in a lot of spaces.
Yep.
Especially when you're black, you're an immigrant, sometimes you try to conform. I tell people, like, it's not like discounting yourself, it's just deciding on what part of yourself do you want to release to these people. Are they deserving of the whole you?
100%.
And that's how I look at personal branding. But a lot of times it's like, you're not going to get it right on 100%. Like, you will start having conversations, you start putting yourself out there, understanding the words and how you describe yourself, and see the response and the feedback you're getting from people. If it's working, continue. If there's things you need to tweak, keep tweaking. But the mistake we make a lot of times is that we think people just know what we're about. Like, our friends and family know what we do. Nah, man, they don't. There's times when I'm in friend circles, I'm like, what do you really do? And so you want to be having those conversations and being able to say, this is what I do. Because some people may not know. You may have friends 5 years. They don't actually know your day job. They don't know the opportunities to talk about you and to say your name in. So if you're not telling people what you're up to, what you're interested in, you have a brand and you put it under a blanket and just like hit it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's so important. And I didn't see necessarily the importance of that until like really stepping into the corporate world. Because I think I spoke about this in another episode, but also we come out of school where we're always measured on, whether it's an assignment that
grades.
you're turning, right, like your grades, and it's a very cut and dry. Whereas, okay, well, if I do a good job with this assignment, I'm going to get a good grade and I'm going to get the reward. And then you step into workplace and you're like, hold on, like I positioned myself really well. I did all these things.
There's no biggest lie like my work will will speak for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have lips.
Exactly. No, I agree with that. And speak now, like on the flip side is also like the branding and like who the person you are, and who the person you want to show to the world is one thing, but also the networking aspect and actually taking the steps to going out and showing that person to the world.
That's right.
How do you, what are some things that maybe you had to like step outside of your comfort zone, or what are some things that maybe you had to do in order to go out there and show that to the world?
So the first thing I want folks to know is that you will fail a ton of times, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, forgive yourself for the mistakes you're going to make when you're now trying to reach out to people. I think that was the hardest thing for me. It's like always doing things the right way. And when I started failing a ton, like I'd say people's names wrong. I would go to a networking event and be too in people's faces and be like, where did you get that jacket? How much was it? And they're like, what? And then I would run out of the place being so embarrassed. And I'm like, come man, like you're new. You're supposed to make these mistakes. It's fine. So that was the first thing I had to tell myself. It's okay to make that mistake. The second thing was nobody brought you to Canada, even not your mom, not your dad. I get it, but the truth is, you have to look at your brand as a company. Like, you are the CEO of you, not your employer, not your classmates. These folks, like, I've been in a ton of school, and how many of those classmates who thought I was their competition at the time when we're presenting assignments do I even talk to now? Or do they even know what I'm up to? So, like, you have to think bigger than everybody else or your environment around you, in the sense that the way I look at career opportunities these are tools to help propel the brand I want to have forward. I don't do stuff for what would my boss think. I mean, there's times I did think that. Then I had to elevate myself out of it, because bosses and colleagues will always be in the past. Like, you would always keep moving, and some people will be in your past. It's like, so whatever you're doing, is that serving the brand purpose you have for yourself as a CEO of your organization, being yourself? So when I had that in mind, then I knew that, okay, I'm going to be able to post on my LinkedIn and not think what my boss thinks, because my boss doesn't work in my company, me, right? He works in the company. He is just like, if I look at it, he's my client, so to speak, in that setting where I have deliverables for him. But what I'm doing for my brand as a whole, does it affect him really, truly? Not really. So why am I seeking permission from that? Or what will my friends think? Your friends are not your clients. Like, don't do things for friends and family. Like, and it, again too, is I had to relinquish myself from expecting friends and family to be my biggest supporters. Because
I just had this conversation, and my fiance is sitting right there, but like we just had this conversation, funny enough, like this week, where I was like, for me, like, I don't even care anymore if my friend, like, a lot of people have this misconception where they think, okay, my friends and family like need to support me, but like, no, your friends and family aren't supposed, because if you're going to please them, your clientele base is limited, right?
Exactly. They're not your clients. So I had to so for me, it's like when I put a new video on YouTube, when I'm doing a speaking engagement, I try to let them know as best as I can, but they're not my audience. So when they show up and support, my mom is everywhere. Like, that woman stalks my life. I love you, Mom.
Same.
But it's like, if she can't show up, there's hey, Mom, love you, Auntie. But there's no, there's no hard feelings. So I that way it removed that feeling of there are other people I need to focus on, so that the focus was back on me and where I wanted to go. But then when I decided, a lot of times, like I said, you would fail. So it's now deciding what is the first thing that's priority to me. For instance, I'll make it practical. When I was done with my master's, I was still deciding if I wanted a career in digital media, in tech, or if I wanted to go full on entrepreneurship. So I had to write lists of people. So I went to LinkedIn, did a ton of research, list of people in these fields based on what I thought I wanted to be in, like, say, 5-10 years. And then I made it a point to reach out to all of them. There was about 10 people, and I was asking for 15-minute conversations and asking questions like, oh, what would you do differently started? What is your day-to-day like in your role? It's all very different, but then that way it helped me reflect, like, is this what I want my day-to-day to look like in 5 years, 10 years? And so it was now a process of elimination. So that realization of advertising doesn't pay and folks don't look like me, I didn't just notice it and I knew it. It was from conversations and being able to share my truth and asking people to please share their truth. And I was just like, okay, eliminate. That's not working. Eliminate. But being flexible, to be honest. Like, when I started my first gig after school, I didn't think I was going to go into sales. That was not my first business. I knew I wanted to do something client facing, something that had tech but actually dealt with people. I didn't think it was sales because I'm not, like, in my head at the time, I'm not a pushy person. You do whatever you want to do. But so I applied to a role in relationship management, and that role became non-available. They were no longer hiring for the role. So I was told, okay, if you start in recruitment, then you get into sales, and sales is like relationship management. And that was how I got into sales and moved on from there.
No, that makes sense. And how did you make that decision with, like, listing everything out? Because you spoke about, like, putting down a list of, like, okay, the pros and the cons, and talk about maybe, like, what importance you attach to working with people that looked like you and why that was important to you, and like, were you able to finally make the decision, and also working, like, in industries like in technology and things like that, like, why were those things that were important to you?
So I think I'm still on I'm still on the journey on not feeling sideways or a certain way about wanting to make money.
That's interesting.
Growing up was like, when you think about, like, especially because it's like sometimes really ultra rich people that I saw around were one of two things: either they really worked in, like, a innovative industry, or they were politicians or into some type of, like, interesting business. That
I want to touch on that when you're done.
Yeah. So subconsciously, everybody wanted to be okay. You wanted to do well. You wanted to be able to afford things, but you didn't want to be rich because there was a negative connotation that comes with being rich and spoiled and not making heaven.
They're all mean, right?
Yeah, they're all mean. They're not going to make heaven. You know how, like, the Bible says it's better for something to go into heaven than a rich man. So you're like, I don't want to be rich. So I had to, first of all, like, and I'm still unlearning that process of wanting to make money, which is why I first didn't care about my career and making money or sales, to be honest. But then when I look at my career, like, when I was first recruiting, I started noticing things. So I generally have a confidence about myself and how I move in spaces. I don't know if it's confidence, but it's more comfort with who I am in a lot of spaces. And how I do that is I try not to be in places where I don't feel comfortable. So that way I curate my environment and I can be myself in those spaces. So I don't have friends that I don't love. You will never catch me in places with people that I don't love. If I'm there, it's probably for 10 minutes because I have a goal and I'm getting out.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing, really. So when I started in recruitment, I would talk to people who looked and sounded like me, and they just sounded so low in confidence. And sometimes it's like I had to fish and get their skill sets that they have and the experience for them. And when I started coming and going through life in Canada and realizing that there was a lot that had to do with racism and microaggressions, and not everybody can be hopelessly optimistic about situations. Like, I saw that it was beating a lot of people down who otherwise would have had, like, a potential if they just focused on the inside voice and not the outside noise. That was where my passion started coming for underrepresented people and, like, supporting other people, like, find the voice inside of them, because somehow God has blessed me with this voice. And I was like, okay, if I can find a career that gets me to work with people who can find their voice and make money, goals. And so, and then that was, now I had to write my values down. What are the things that make me happy? I love supporting people who are underestimated. People say underrepresented. I just say underestimated, because it's such a dope position to be in when people don't see you coming, because then you actually get to, like, wow the world in a way where they don't see you coming. But also, like, in tech, using technology and innovation, I've always loved using new ideas, new technology. So I was like, okay, how can I be in that sweet spot? And so when opportunities come, it's like, does this actually help me support the community I want to support? Does it help? Am I going to make money? Is there like, am I just going to be in a space with all white folks and I don't get to work? Nah. So that's how I started evaluating opportunities as my career was progressing.
No, that makes perfect sense. And so the question that I was going to ask was on, you came here as an immigrant from Nigeria, and I think that would be a good segue into speaking about like your business and what you're doing there specifically. But what are some of the differences? And I know you didn't necessarily work too much corporate when you were in Nigeria, but what are maybe like some differences that you're seeing between, and like what are some of the opportunities and maybe the reason why so many people want to come to Canada, to start their career or to advance their career?
Differences to start with is things like there is I call it a false sense of respect. If you want to come for me, come for me.
Yeah.
But
a false sense of respect.
A false sense of respect where people have to say things like yes, yes, ma'am, and you cannot have an idea bigger than your boss.
And where's that? That's here or
in Nigeria.
Okay.
So it's like your demigod, if you will, is your boss. Like you can't think beyond that. Everything needs to pass that. And I've always been a rebel. Like I was that kid in school, where they could say, please, Janey, Buzugbe, come on stage. And I'd be like, it could be a prize, it could be for punishment, we're going to find out. I was that kid who never, so I was always getting in trouble. But a lot of times it was just for questioning why do we do things the way we do.
Yeah, questioning the status quo.
Yes. Yeah. And so but in Nigerian corporate spaces, you don't do that, right? And I knew that, okay, this is going to be tough. So I knew that it's either I work in a space where I still have to have most of my input in the business I did on the side, and I just did that for money. But like my parents will even tell you, man, I didn't see you working in Nigeria for too long for reasons like that. There's not a lot of opportunities too. There's a whole lot more graduates than there are opportunities. So a lot of people have to have influence from a family member to get a job. It doesn't matter how bright you are. I know a lot of kids who we graduated from school about the same time and still are struggling to get a job. So everyone becomes an entrepreneur. Everyone now has a business. So that also answers the question of why a lot of people are looking to other countries where there's a ton of opportunities that are looking to be filled versus in Nigeria. Like if there's a job posted, I bet you like thousands of people are applying in the first hour. And it also doesn't even pay well. The economy is so bad right now. And we also have like people in power who do not really care so much for the youth. And so you may see really fun news. And the bright side, too, of all of it is this fun news we're hearing about, like, a ton of Nigerian startups, like, raising a ton of money because that is now creating more opportunity for folks in the continent, folks in Nigeria. But at the end of the day, in a society where the number one employer of labor should be the government and the government is crap, that's why a lot of people are trying to find something else. Because at the end of the day, Nigerians are quite industrious. So it's usually not, we're just going to sit on our hands and sucks, our government is crap. People are always just looking for how can I get better. And Canada, frankly, is one of those countries who is benefiting from immigrants like who are highly educated, highly skilled, and trying to tap into that with their birth rate declining and population aging. So, and the fact that folks can actually have a permanent status in Canada versus the way I look at it is I invested more than $100 and something plus $1,000 in the Canadian economy as an international student. I get to work here, grow in my career, but also get a return on that investment. Hopefully, by God's grace, God keeping us alive, I can take back to the continent to make it better.
Makes sense.
That's the way a lot of folks are looking at it.
Got it. How many people are actually, like, in your opinion, like doing that, like doing the opposite? Because I think that about myself, like in Cameroon, where I'm from, like a lot of, I think about my uncles and my family, like a lot of people are going back and reinvesting kind of there whether it's real estate and things like that. But even though because it's so difficult and because the economy is not as good, they start looking at it and they're like, well, even though I want to give back to my country, well, it's still like the best return on investment is to keep the money here. And to keep investing here.
That's a really good point. I know a few people who are doing that, though, because the way I look at it, too, from an investment perspective, is the North American market and a lot of markets in the West are saturated and they're mature. The continent is emerging. There's still a lot of opportunity for growth. And now when I look at millennials and Gen Zs, like this stage, we're always like questioning and wondering how we can do things better. Like there's a more alignment towards purpose than just profit. And so with that optimistic point of view, I know people who have either moved back or focusing on investments there. So the permanence doesn't necessarily mean you have to move back because now there's a digital age. You can have a ton of investment that are in the private markets that can still better economies outside of waiting for legislation and government. But the truth is, it's not easy. Like the cost of doing business on the continent is still tough because of the way structures are. But I actually really think it's. I honestly have no other thing than to have faith that it's going to get better because
100%.
of how we are looking at it. Like we're thinking about it. It's not now. Oh, we just want to make money. It's more how can we make like the content is going to be there when we die. So we need to make sure that we're creating opportunities for people who come after us.
Yeah, for the next generation.
Yeah,
okay, and that's going to be great transition into like your business specifically. And can you speak about, because it started with Janey of Canada and like your YouTube channel, and they kind of evolved to
that's right,
Immigrant, which is now. Can you speak a little bit about that transition and your purpose behind that and what you're doing?
That's a really good point. So how we all started, to be honest, I didn't think about creating a business that serves immigrant professionals. That was not the goal at first. When I moved to Canada, like we've talked about how people always thought I should be in media. I knew in my mind I've always had a YouTube channel. It's one of those things where you're like in the bathroom, you're like, hi guys. But I didn't want my channel to just be just a channel. I wanted it to be able to give people information, resources, and knowledge. I wasn't sure how. So my very first video was when I moved in class and things would happen. Like I didn't know it was a statutory holiday, for instance, and all my friends had planned trips. I'll be talking to one Indian student and they'll say things like, oh, I just got a bursary. I was like, bursary, what? And then I go to the international office and like, oh, you missed the deadline. I was just like, going through one L after the other. So my first video was top 10 things every international student coming to Canada should know. That video now has almost 150K views.
Yeah, no,
I was like, okay, so there's people.
It popped back up because I watched it a while ago, but like it popped back up on my YouTube recently, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, I'm famous. Like, don't start YouTube because you're trying to make money. You'll be disappointed.
100%, yeah.
But then I think because I had done other videos too. It wasn't like the only video I did. I did videos about like DIY things. I love to do things in my hand. I always make my own hair, so I was like, okay, let me just see what's out there, and that's the purpose. That's the point about trying things and seeing what feedback you get. And so when I realized, okay, giving information, helping people who are immigrants was working, that was the content I started creating. And then I'll take people through my journey, like when I applied for study permits, work permits, my PR, and most recently my citizenship.
Yeah.
And so now I've been able to support people, but I used to get a ton of questions. Like my email inbox will be full, bruh. So I started doing live videos where I'll just try to answer the questions as much as I can.
Yeah.
But obviously not being an an immigration consultant, a lawyer, there were some questions I couldn't answer. But then I started to realize a theme. Folks were focused so much on coming to Canada and not thinking about what happens when I get there.
When you get there, yeah.
It just reminds me of like the Israelites in the desert, just like we're going to the land of milk and honey, and then they get to Canaan and they're like, what now? And then, oh, you got to fight those people? I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So folks are not thinking about things like racism, about a career. So when they get here, they're so pressed to get a job because they just want to make money because they're depleting funds. A lot of times, they're coming from countries with lower currencies. So your money is going faster. So you're like, I just want to get a job. And folks don't think too much about how the first job you get sometimes set the trajectory for your career for the next little while.
100%.
And so a lot of immigrants are underemployed or even unemployed. So people are just taking what we call immigrant jobs, aka working in a factory, a grocery shop, in customer service as an agent. Because the way work is here compared to back home, in the sense that back home, work is work. Like people like say, I can't kill myself. In the sense where we always prioritize enjoyment. Like that's why Nigeria is always like the life of the party. Like we prioritize enjoyment over work. Like so people always chill. Here you work around the clock a lot of times, and we're paid by hour here compared to back home. You're paid salaries, so people they'll be moving mouse the entire month. I don't get my paycheck anyways. Here, like a lot of times you're paid by the hour, especially in those type of jobs. So folks start working and don't realize how much time has passed. And they haven't gotten on the career path that they wanted for themselves. And usually by that time, they now don't remember all the skill sets they had because they hadn't been taking stock of what they even know what they've done. And they've usually now lost confidence. So they usually don't have the ability at that point now to get back on track and get into a career that helps them progress. Also, because a lot of people come and they want to figure it out themselves, it's not our culture to talk to people. Maybe they even start to get interviews in roles that is fitting to what they've studied for. They forget things like compensation and negotiation. They don't even think it's an option because where we're from, we're just so grateful that, okay, thank you, my boss. Your boss is king, whatever they tell you.
The culture completely different,
Is usually different. So you don't even think to negotiate. And a lot of times they're now converting currency. So for instance, if I get 200K in Nigeria, I'm not sure, like say here it's probably like 5K or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers. So you're thinking, oh my God, like if I get 5K, that's big. You're not thinking cost of living and the difference in environment. So for instance, an entry level job that you could easily have gotten 70K, people are converting being like, oh, 45K, yo, that's huge. And so they say 45K. And the employer is like, so one of two things. Either they don't get employed for that role because they're thinking you don't know anything about the role because why are you saying 45K? That's not market rate. Or if the employer is greedy, they're like, we'll take you. And once you start on that salary, now you stay underemployed.
Yeah, because there's a cap to how much of a raise
exactly,
and things like that.
You know it's usually 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
And so except you change jobs, which a lot of Nigerians also don't do for a cultural perspective, because most people work one job most of their lives back home, or maximum 2, 3. People stay in organizations for a long time. So if you now think about it, if you stayed on 40, 45K, they add like 2K, 3K every year. And 5 years, you would have made almost 200K less than somebody who actually started in market rate.
Yeah.
And that used to pain my soul when I saw that. Like, folks not thinking about that, not thinking about... And a lot of times as immigrants, when we come, you're usually hearing from one auntie or one uncle. And their story, that single story, becomes your truth. So they tell you need to work in McDonald's. So you're like, I got to go get a job in McDonald's. You don't ask questions from everybody else. And so that was how we started Immunication, really. Now to teach people career readiness skills, how to set up your personal brand, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, how to talk in interviews confidently. Also interview skills, because people think my work will speak for me.
Exactly.
No, Brad, you got to sell yourself. It's sales. And a lot of folks, immigrants, are not comfortable. We're just so grateful. We just got here. Oh my God, Canada. And also how to negotiate, because how you start determines how you continue and how you finish. I got lucky enough. Like, my mom is educated. My dad is as well. So I got some advice from them on like things to do. And I also, when I got here, I was that person who didn't care of embarrassing myself most times.
Exactly. You got to.
Diss my accent, if you will. I'll ask you the question like, yo, how do you get that job? How much do you pay?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a mentor. The first job where I actually got a 30K increase. So I was leaving one job, I was paying about 50-something K. I'm going to another job, and then I was going to ask, really frankly, for like 65K then. And I was just running it by my mentor. I told her, please, can I just run you through my interview and my resume? And she was like, okay, I'll check it over for you. And I said, how much do you think I should ask them from a compensation standpoint? She goes, you can easily ask for 90K. I was like, 90K?
Yeah, exactly.
She looked at me like, why are you shocked? Like, white girls, like, that's even early. And so I was like, you know what? She said it, I'm going to do it. And so I was like, when they asked me how much I wanted, I'm Nigerian, I was like, 92. I was like, 92K. And I was like, holy smokes. And he goes, okay, let's talk about it. I was like, shit. Yeah. And we had a conversation. I ended up landing on 90. I couldn't believe it, but somebody was able to speak that confidence into me because I was sharing and opening my mouth. And that was what we wanted to do with Immunication. So we are a network of immigrant professionals where you can just come and find other people who are like you, looking to support you for free. And then if you want to take career readiness skills training, we have programs to support you and help you with that. Gosh, I get really passionate about this.
I love this. And definitely check her out. We'll put all the links in the descriptions of all, whether it's the podcast or the video on YouTube. But I wanted to speak because that brought up another question of mine. And there's actually so many questions that came out of that. But one question I wanted to ask specifically was about compensation. And I think that's one thing that I want to speak a lot more on in this podcast, because a lot of people... Because you spoke about being scared to ask and things like that, and I believe like that's the reality for a lot of people. I'm at the point now, I'm just like, I realize that like the worst thing that can happen is people saying no. So like I just like go and like I literally ask.
And you taught me something. I remember one thing you used to say when we worked in sales was, you miss 100% of shots you don't take. And I used to always say that to myself, like, bro, I'll shoot the shot. You throw me back into a route, I'll be fine.
Man, I have like a one-on-one with my director, like a monthly one-on-one, and I ask him for more money every single month. I swear he gets tired of hearing from me. But the thing is, like, what can he do? Like, what the worst he can say is just, nah, not right now. Wait till your promotion or wait till whatever. But I wanted to ask about like, how do you like, because the confidence you're going to have, is going to come from your accomplishment, yes. But how do you have those conversations? What are the information that you present? Because I'm assuming you don't just walk into any interview and you're just like, oh, well, I want like that's 50K right. more than what you're offering. Right. It's kind of like you are sitting down and speaking to your accomplishments. And so how do you have those conversations is my question.
Okay, that's a really good point. So that's a really good caveat too, to say that you obviously can't be average or below average and be quoting more than average in market. Like obviously they're going to just think you're a clown. However, one thing I wanted to start with is experience is measured in years, but it's not necessarily gathered in years.
Yeah.
So first thing is when they say things like, oh, 5 years of experience. And I guarantee you that if you're a person of color, a woman listening, you already most likely have that stuff that you need to get what you need. Most times, because I'll say our tendency is to think less of what we have. There's times when you had to big me up and remind me of stuff that I've done. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay. So one thing was obviously surrounding myself with a community of cheerleaders who would remind me of how great I am. Like, it's important. Like, there's times when those voices come to your head. So family, friends, colleagues. Then also, as in a personal front, have your own stock. Like, you think you will remember, the brain is a really funny thing. You will forget all the amazingness that is you. So I try to write things down. Like when people say stuff like, oh, Janey, this was the most this that I've ever had. You created that. I'll take a screenshot and put it in something I call a brag book, which is a running sheet, Google Docs, Google Slides, Excel, whatever, how you want to do it. Think about it as you're building your portfolio of big up in that people have given you over the past, because those are the things you will need in conversations around interviews. You will forget when it's time to have conversations with your boss about salary, what you've done in a year.
Same thing with your numbers, because I remember last time I left my job, like you're the ones that were kind of reminding me, like, oh, like
you did that.
These numbers are things you did.
Yes, exactly. So you have to take stock about, like, even things go all the way back to school. Like if you're entry level listening in class, like was there ever a time a professor bigged you up? Was there ever a time your colleagues, your classmates said something nice about you? Like say things like that, like, well, you're better than average in the class of 40. So don't talk about, oh, I learned this. Talk about what you did, because everyone is learning stuff. What were you able to do with that learning?
Yeah, the output.
And what were you able, exactly. So those are the conversations. So when you come to that conversation, and people, because of fear and anxiety, people think conversations are altercations and negotiations are altercations in their head. They're expecting it to be like a tug of war. No, it's a conversation, and you approach it with curiosity. So you would ask questions typically to say, so when I started, again, you want to ask questions early enough in the interview process to make sure that when you get to negotiation, you have the tools and the power to do so. A question you can ask early is, in 5-6 months, a year, what would you say successful hire in this role looks like? Because at the end of the day, they're bringing you in to solve a problem. You want to really be clear on what that problem is. And a lot of times we make the assumption that job descriptions have it. No. Yeah. Literally, I've written a ton of job descriptions, and I'm just like... And
you step in the job, it's completely different. They make it look good for LinkedIn or for whatever.
The employer is selling stuff. They're selling the opportunity. They always say the nicest things in interviews. You're selling yourself. So it's all a sales game. So at that point, you want to make sure you're asking the right questions. Like, what would success look like in this hire? Who on the team? And also, it's okay to ask to speak with people on the team before you take a job. Who on the team will be able to paint a picture of the role as well, or how we would interface? Watch out for how the employer reacts when you ask to speak with a member of the team. All of that is information.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, like, as a black woman now, I charge extra for being black in these white spaces. I'm sorry. It's just there's microaggressions. Like, if you're going to hire a white woman who is not going to notice that people are pissing me off, that's fine. Like, she doesn't have to deal with that. I had to deal with navigating my blackness to the white space. So that's an extra $15K. I don't say that necessarily in interview, but I know it in the back of my head. So pretty much just like...
Talk your talk, then.
Sis, bruh. So, like, when you have those questions... that you already know that gives you information. So typically at the interview stage or the negotiation stage, now you say things like, oh, I know that it's important for somebody who has had sales experience in this role. I've had over 5 years of sales experience. I've negotiated deals. I've worked with budgets of this. And compared to the industry standard, I bring a global perspective. And this is specifically to immigrants who think, oh, I don't have Canadian experience. You bring a global perspective, meaning that you'll be able to deal with a broader array of clients who look more like you and the rest of the population of the world, which is something that's very invaluable.
Yeah, so because you had to adapt to what people are doing here, plus on top of it, you know the kind of cultural differences. Yeah.
Exactly. So my head of learning and education would say one of her biggest achievements was moving from Nigeria to Canada and getting a successful career in a very short time. Because the adaptability skills, you're switching environments, it's important. Those are the type of interpersonal skills you should bring forward, and then paint a picture for them on how you can work on the client, on the team, with those skills you've acquired. And so with all these points, I know that definitely, just based on my experience, we should be having a conversation around this range. What do you think? Now I'll toss the ball back to them. But I usually say, like in the words of Buzugbe St. John, go first, go high. because whatever comes out of their mouth first or whatever comes up in the conversation is what the conversation's anchored around. It's called an anchored negotiation. And so you're usually adding 5, 10, 15K around that first number. So if you go first and say, yo, I want 150, and maybe their budget was 90 and they really like you, people think, oh, if they don't like me, oh, if I negotiated high and they don't like me, I'm going to lose the opportunity. Yeah, don't worry about that, sweetheart. That's not true. You also know that the recruiter, the hiring manager, is not trying to go back in the streets and start to find an amazing candidate. They want to make sure it works. So the least they would do is at least say no, or this is what realistically we can do. But if you start your number at 150 and the budget was flexible, say it's a net new role, they've never hired for it before, now you're having a conversation around 150, not 90 that they had started on. And what else would I say about negotiation? Like also know so in negotiation, it's what's the zone of possible agreements, which is called a ZOPA, meaning, okay, say they've posted a range. The employer has posted their own range on the website. So maybe it's, say, 50 to 100, big scale. And you're looking for opportunities within 70 to 120. The zone of possible agreement is between 70 to 100.
Right.
So you want to maybe start at that highest range of the zone, 100, 110, and see if you land in that zone of possible agreement. That's how you want to go into negotiations. Also, what's a BATNA, which is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? What happens if they can't get into your range 70 to 120? What do you do? Are you open to being flexible, or do you have other opportunities lined up that are coming for you? And those are the kind of tools you go into a negotiation with that helps you with confidence. Like you go with that type of data, your achievements, you have your brag book. Ideally, you have a really dope LinkedIn profile that has recommendations. You know your zone of possible agreement and your BATNA, and that usually would help you in those conversations.
No, that makes perfect sense. One thing I want to quickly touch on is so when you come, because you're in a position now where you haven't applied for an actual job in a very long time, right? And I've addressed that, but this is obviously the 1% of Juju podcast, and we talk a lot about kind of reaching that 1% level and elevating. A lot of this conversation is often centered around the business focus that doing, and you're doing it as well, right, with your side hustle, which is going to become a massive business. I'm speaking
amen
here, but do you believe in the ability to really and I'm saying that because my uncle is a pessimist. He's like, if you're not working at least 3 to 4 jobs, you're not going to make it in this world. But do you believe in this corporate world, in the environment that we're in, that there's areas for growth really, and for people to reach those goals, and for to be really above, I guess, live above average by just growing within the corporate world? Is that one of your belief, and how do people go about that?
So it depends on how you define success. Let's start with that. How do you define success? Some people, success is having $1 million in the bank account before they're 30. Some people is having 1 million people they've impacted before they're 30. How do you define success? Some people is having peace of mind and no enemies on the streets. What is your definition of success? And I had recently had the privilege of moderating a conversation with a CEO of a Group M, which is a big media conglomerate, who happens to be Black. And I had counted myself out from being Black in media because it was honestly so stressful. But here is somebody who is a Black man that has made it to the pinnacle of his career. So I say that example to say, what you think is possible can be possible for you. What you don't think is possible is not going to be possible for you. So and that's the point about mindset and what you tell yourself. So yes, in short, I do believe you can get to the pinnacle of success in your career in the corporate world, depending on what you define as success. I don't know really truly that you can make $1 million working for someone else. I don't know, but again, there's industries where it's possible. There's roles where it's possible. I don't know. You know what I mean? So usually when people tell you it's not possible, a lot of times my thing's I'm going to try to see if that is actually truth. And I start to research. But what I know for sure is for my definition of success, being able to create opportunities for people, having people I employ that can help shape economies, people I can train and teach is my definition of success. And that's why the part of my business is anchored around training and teaching. But also I have staff now, and I'm like, oh my God, I have staff now
right.
that actually ask me questions about their own interviews, or And sometimes I just leave them to do stuff on the business and trust them. And I'm like, this is success to me because I wanted to impact lives and I wanted to have people run their own careers and I wanted my business to be a launching pad for people's careers, our clients being immigrant professionals, but also the people I hire. So short answer again, I do believe that you can make it in the career space. You just have to have, as Kevin Johnson, the CEO I'm talking about, said, you have to have relentless focus.
That's interesting.
That was his phrase, relentless focus.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel, oh, dang, I can so relate to that. I'm gonna need to go back and watch that talk. I wanted to talk about, and this is gonna be the last thing I promise, but I could do this all day long. But
I know we have really good conversations.
I have. So I saw like another video of yours popped up on my on my YouTube feed yesterday. I haven't watched it yet, so just so you know, but I will later today. And it spoke about like your debt repayment.
Yes, that's a new video. I dropped it yesterday.
Yeah, no, and it just came up. So you talked about your debt repayment, and I just want to speak very quickly about that journey and like how that may be another challenge that maybe like immigrants have to face, and how that is different for people that maybe like are immigrants versus people that are locals.
Yeah.
The taking on of debt and like the repayment of that journey.
Thank you for bringing that part up. I think that this is also the importance of who you listen to. When I came in, people, and I had done those 2 programs, and it was time to do my master's. My dad, bless his soul, I'm not his only kid. Is like, listen, Linda, if you want to keep schooling, I love you. I can't just afford it right now. So like, how are you going to figure it out? So I had to take a loan. Loans, first of all, are not really available to folks who are not permanent residents or Canadian citizens. And when they finally are, the few that are, the interest rates are through the roof. So OSAP, I think, is around like 3% or something like that. Like, and it's
which is only for people that are from Ontario, right?
Yes, OSAP is on Ontario Student Assistance Program, I believe. And also, there's a ton of grace period. It's like, take your time. When you're ready, then we'll start charging you.
Yeah, exactly.
I got this private lender that was lucky, and I think it was God's doing, to be honest, because other than that, I wouldn't have been able to do my master's. Who was attached to the program I did. And so I had at that point saved a ton. And Bri, if you know me, I'm frugal. And I do a lot of things on my hands. And I was doing the video about the side hustles I was in as an international student. I made $35,000 as an international student on side hustles. I didn't even know that. I had to just take stock recently.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, you were making money. No wonder you were in these streets.
Like, hold on. We might have to put a link to that video, right? But I might have to take a look because I want an extra $35,000. It's dropping
this week. Yeah.
Hold on.
I was like, but I did a ton of stuff. Like but then, so I had saved a little bit from working as an international student. So I could only pay a little bit, but I had to take USD $25,000 as a loan. And I remember this one kid. You know how you see those friends who maybe friends or people you know in industry who look like they're on the same level as you, but they look like they're big. Like they have the bands, they have that nice Creed smelling cologne, and you're always like, God, when? This guy literally told me that I was stupid for going to do a master's when I could invest, he said at the time, that $50,000 I was going to pay to school into a business and stuff. And I had to, I reflected on it that day being like, so if I invested $50,000 in a business that I don't know how to run,
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going. That's the point about
it. Sounds easy at that point. The way he explains it.
And he looked at the time like a life like I would have wanted because he looked like he was bally. But again, beware of what people look like in Canada because a lot of people take credit to look good.
In Canada, in the U.S., everywhere.
In any country that accepts credit.
Exactly.
So beware
that
of
credit,
that.
Beautiful.
Because a lot of people like in Nigeria would see people in Canada, but like, yo, I want to go to Canada and have that car. Bro, they probably are financing that car. They're in debt. Like, don't think. So that's the thing. You have to like, what works for you? Yeah. So my thing was, I had also been blessed to have a brother who had come here, had made his mistakes. I was able to share, hey, I made ABC mistakes when it comes to credit. Don't do that. I was like, say less. So that way, when I took the loan, I knew like I didn't want to have debt. I've seen people who have debt and how it stops them from making a lot of financial decisions because they always have to carry that weight when moving forward. Right. So when I took the loan, I legit told myself that in 1 year, I'm going to pay this thing. I didn't have a job. I was a student, but I knew that it was just weird. Like, but something like I really believe in. I started that video, funny enough, with Proverbs 16:9 that says, "Commit your plans to the Lord, and He will establish your ways."
That's the part I saw when.
So at first I was like, God, like I prayed about this masters, it came my way, so you're gonna have to lead me. And funny enough, there was ways, and I go into detail in the video, but it's first of all relentless focus. Now when you have a plan, you gotta write it down. Like the Bible even says, have a vision, write it down. So I wrote it down. Like that was the first time. Like Juju, I'm like you when it comes to budgets. Like I just know I'm good in my headspace. But because I had that new money that I had to pay with 12% interest plus LIBOR and APR and all those things that can tweak it. I had to write it down, have a budget. And my friends and I told my friends around me, like, okay, there's this budget, man, and there's this loan. Like, don't be calling me up to go pop a bottle. Like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And if you have good people around you, they help, because we'll go to a food court, for instance, they're all boiling on some Szechuan chicken.
She said Szechuan chicken.
And I have to go to Costco for that $1.50 hot dog. And then, they'll be like,
don't be disrespecting the $1 hot dog. Costco.
Yo, that
saved
me.
That thing hit.
So those are the type of things I had to do. Like, you can't keep living like a baller when you have a plan in mind. And I was, by God's grace, I was able to pay that debt. And now when I think about buying a house, I don't have to worry about those things.
100%.
When I think about, like, okay, I want to travel, I'm not thinking trip versus debt. And those were the considerations I made in paying that debt off. But full video is up on my YouTube channel. So
and you're moving into your house soon, aren't you?
Yeah, man. Yay.
Let's get it.
Thank you for all that knowledge in the house. By the way, like, we have a really in-depth video that people have been talking about on my YouTube channel about how this man had 3 houses before he was 26.
I'm humble.
Would you really now want to be his big sister?
I'm humble. Nah, it's all by the grace of God. No, but this is amazing. This is probably going to be my longest episode so far, which I love. This is great. I think that we could keep going. But, Janey, where can the people find you if they want to know more about all these great things that you're doing and more? Because if you're looking to grow your career, whether you're an immigrant or not, I think that they could really get a lot of value from you. So where can they find you?
A ton of places. You know where I live. I'm kidding. So first place is
I'll put her address in the bio.
Oh my goodness. I probably won't be here by the time you do that. So first place is immigrant.com. Join the network. It's legit like a LinkedIn platform for immigrants where you can find other people based on province, based on titles and profession. So if you're looking for other project managers in Ontario who are immigrants, easy. Like, that's a networking ground, and it's free to do that. So I chill on there every week. So that's the best place to find me. I also drop videos on YouTube. I try to do it weekly, and I've been good so far for the past 2 months, where I give a ton of free resources and advice as I learn. I don't know it all, so I usually have conversations in comments, be like, how are y'all doing this thing? Let us know. I'm also on LinkedIn. I try to reply DMs on there, but I'm honestly everywhere where there is a social media presence. That TikTok, though, I'm still trying to figure out.
Oh, yeah, that thing is nice.
But Instagram, LinkedIn, but primarily immigrant.com is where I hang out the most.
Yeah. No, excellent. We'll put, obviously, all of those links in the description. Thanks once again for joining. For you guys watching at home, make sure you go spam her comments, subscribe to her channel, all of that good stuff. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to this podcast right now. Do it before we leave because we're on the road. 1. As you can see, and we have some more really exciting things coming in the future. Maybe not. I'm just saying this, but do it anyway. So go ahead and subscribe.
Thank you so much.
What else do I need to tell us? Yeah, follow us on social media. I'm on TikTok now, so I'm doing these little dances and whatever. Yeah, that's really it. Now, we really do appreciate Janey joining us. We're excited. But for today, you already know, make sure that you're taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goal than you were yesterday. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.